Hello, hello, back at John and Coco's for another fantastic video of entertainment and general renovation works. So behind me is a wall, it's an outside wall with a window. I'm going to plaster it. We'll come back when it's plastered. And as promised, I'm back. That's that wall done, just waiting to do the final polish. Whilst I was doing it, I also did that wall there, and because there was a little bit of gear left over, I've done this reveal here. That was comedy timing. I apologise for everybody's eyes. You didn't need to see that, but in my defence, I didn't know he was in that position.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. So as you can see, Steve is currently just insulating this cavity with some rock wool insulation. As you can see, we couldn't buy the washers. We couldn't get the washers in time to do the install, so we've used some offcuts of metal. It's doing the job. That's not a problem. So that's all glued back. All the joins are glued as well. Happy days. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to carry on plastering, and then later on this afternoon I'm going to go in there, get the rest of it insulated and carry on installing the tile backer board. We've got the plumber here. He's still doing some work on the boiler, so that's happening as well. Boiler needs a bit of love. It's working, it just needs a bit of a service. It keeps having a couple of error codes. Insulation, horrible. Right, back in a bit. Right, I've just cleared this wall ready. I need to clear that wall ready, and then I can start plastering again. Oh, hi Steve, do you want to tell everybody what you're doing?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. So I cleaned up all this mess here. All the waste has gone into Steve's van, ready to go and get rid of it responsibly at the déchetterie. And Steve is currently clearing all of this area out, because we're going to get him to start digging the footings ready for the suspended floor that we'll be putting in. So that's what's happening. Paul's been beavering away on the stairs. So there you go, that's what he's currently working on. Very time consuming, but he's slowly getting there. Just trying to use up some material, so we'll leave him alone and let him get on with that, and let's do some plastering. Okay, because everybody's busy and the video content's not going to be that special, I thought I would do, for you guys only, a how-to with the old Lutece plaster. So basically, if you buy a bag of Lutece, you get orange, which is L, 2000L, that's the longer lasting stuff, and then you get the green-blue stuff, which is C, which apparently goes off in half an hour, but there's no consistency whatsoever. Some go off quick, some take ages. It really just depends on the day, whether the pack's been open, how it's been stored. So that doesn't help at all, because it doesn't help me either. So obviously when you're doing your plastering, you need to gauge the quantity that you're going to be using. Now a full bag will do around 4 boards. If you put it on fairly thick, obviously you can stretch to 5 maybe if you're really lucky. But if you gauge 3 or 4 boards worth, you won't be too far off. Now obviously, because I use this all the time, I know if I fill up my green tub with like half-row of water and then top it right up to the top, I can do 2 walls. I might have to mix up a little bit more at the end just to finish off, but normally I can do 2 medium-sized room walls. But that all comes down to, you know, you sorting that for yourself. So first things first, let's get a mix on. Always put the water in first, obviously. Okay, I've done a really big mix because I'm going to be doing this wall, that wall and a few reveals. So basically you want to keep the mix nice and wet and just keep on adding the powder. Don't let it get too dry, because if it gets dry clumpy bits in, later on when you're polishing out, they'll suddenly appear and just it's basically like dragging stones across the wall. So it's really important to really mix it really well. Now, consistency wise, it's entirely up to you, but I go for quite nice and creamy. It's less work on the hands and arms and wrists, and no matter how hard I try, I will be messy, so I don't care. Ooh, helps if you have a trowel somewhere around. Ooh, conveniently by the camera. Okay, so I'm just using a 14-inch Marshalltown stainless steel for putting on. So we will do a first coat. Now, because we've got two tapered edges butting up, we do them first. Now, the reason we do the tapered edges first is it just guarantees you won't end up with no hollows later on where you didn't fill them properly. Okay, that's that done. Now, because I am right-handed, I start top left, work along to there, and then bottom left and work along. I'll get that way, because otherwise it will create a dry spot. Right, so let's start by getting it on the wall. Like wall plastering. Let's just get it a little bit round in the shot. That's it. Just get it on quick as you can. You want to help?
It's very good, huh?
Yeah?
Oh, yes. I take an artisan. You speak French?
No.
So, you speak French?
Un petit peu.
Un petit peu. Pour expliquer un peu.
Okay, so now that first coat's on, you can just leave it for a little while and then flatten it off. So we'll come back in a minute when we're ready to flatten it off. Okay, so now we've waited a while, it's ready to flatten off. Now, you can flatten off with your normal stainless steel trowel if you want, but Richie bought one of these 18-inch Superflex refiner ones, and I must admit, after using it, it does such a good job, and obviously the size difference, it smooths off a larger area quicker, so it's more efficient to use this one. So basically, same again, we start top left, we work our way along, and we just flatten the coat off. Okay, so basically on that first coat, all you're trying to do is just flatten it off, get rid of any hollows, and just get it a lot better ready for the second coat. Also, because this Lutece's so gritty, as you're troweling it, if you feel anything, you know, like the little stones and they appear, just flick them out, because it saves hassle later on. Okay, so now we wait. Okay, I've been very, very busy whilst I've been waiting. All of that section over there has been plastered, that head, the two sides there and there, that whole wall. So whilst that's been happening, I've just been obviously waiting. And what we do is we just keep coming back and we're just touching the wall, and if you can see that, we're literally just waiting for it to just hold itself. So see, it's like, you know, holding itself rather than being sopping wet. That's about right. You don't want it too dry, because then obviously it's two coats. You want two coats becoming one coat when you smear the second coat over. So yeah, we're literally just... my GoPro SD card just ran out. That's why this is going to be like a weird clip. Right, I'm going to have to swap walls, because obviously I couldn't wait for me to swap all the data over. So that wall over there has been done. This wall's still ready to second coat. So as I was saying, you're just basically waiting for it to be touch dry as such, but still a little bit wet. So if you're still slightly leaving marks in it like that, you know it's ready to go. You don't want it to be sopping wet, but also you don't want it to be bone dry. So that is perfect. So what we do is we do another mix. So if you did a full tub for your second coat, do half a tub and you're pretty much guaranteed for your gauge that'll work out quite right. I do it a little bit wetter again, just so it goes on nice and easy. Let's set up the GoPro and get this wall done. Right, I've just finished putting this second coat on and then we'll come back. Okay, so as you can see, just a small amount left in the bottom, and when you consider that's to do all of that over there, all of that there, all of this round here, it's not a bad guesstimation. Right, so same again as the first coat, we will now get the trowel and just flatten it off. You can wait 5 minutes, you can wait 20 minutes, it's whatever really. It's not going to go off very quickly because it's the long lasting stuff. So what I will do now is I clean all my kit up, get everything prepped, and then I will flatten off. Okay, so now you've got your two coats on and they're flattened off, it's just a waiting game. You're literally just waiting for it to be hard enough to start, you know, brushing it up, making it look good. There's loads of options these days. You get all sorts of different trowels. There used to be a time when I just used to use this for absolutely everything. What we find with this Lutece, because of the colour, when you're staring at it, you you plaster it, you put your finish on, it looks brilliant. But then when you come back a couple of days later, it's all bone dry. There can be a lot of hollows, a lot of defects in it that you just visually you can't see them. It's not an excuse. Like, I know multiple people over here that we've worked together, and they're like, afterwards, it's a pain. Like, it's one of those things. So I've experimented with loads of different, like, you know, techniques and different ways of overcoming it. Even having lights shining across the wall to see if, you know, it'll highlight it. But what I found best is the old sponge float. So what I do is I let that start to obviously, you know, go hard enough so I can put a sponge float over it, and then just, I'll rub up about 2 square metres, then I'll flatten off again, another couple of metres, flatten off again, and what that does is it obviously pulls the plaster around, so if there's any little holes or any little scratch marks that you just visually can't see, it will fill them. And then when you obviously trowel, because it's a nice big flat surface, it then goes over nice and flat, and then sort of like bomb-proofs your work as such. I'm not saying it's always going to be perfect, but it helps. So that's what I personally do. Once I've done that, it's just a waiting game. We just wait and wait and wait. Then I brush in the corners, clean up the corners, clean off any snots, give it another trowel, and then we wait until it's basically as good as done, and then we just give it one final trowel, wet trowel. So that's the process. So I've literally just got to be patient. It's very cold. It's only a few degrees outside, so yeah, it's probably 5 or 6 degrees inside, so it's not very warm, so I've just got to wait. So once this wall's ready, I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'll show you now what I mean by sponge floating it up. So just rub your corners in, and then big circular motions, and all you're looking to do is just take that top edge and just work it. And as you flatten it off, because underneath it's a little bit drier, any hollows will be slightly darker, so you actually noticed it. So I always start in the corners and start pulling it down. Then as they appear, just use what you've got on your trowel to fill in. Now, if the gear's too dry and you sponge it up and you leave it too long, you end up with all the lines, so you don't want to do too much, just do sections. I clean the float up after every section as well. Okay, now, same again, we just wait and wait and wait, and we're literally waiting for it to be totally and utterly touch dry, so when you touch it, no plaster sticks to your fingers or nothing, and then maybe wait a little bit longer. And then what we'll do is we'll get the brush and we'll just start to brush the plaster up a little bit, trowel it, and we'll see what it responds, you know, we'll see how it feels. If it starts to tear, obviously we need to wait a bit longer, but if it starts to polish up, we know we're right. Okay, so I've patiently waited and the wall is now ready, so when you touch it, it's basically touch dry. You can use a brush, or you can use your water bottle sprayer. I use a combination of both. So brush to clean up the corners. And then if you just did have just a brush, you can wet it up and do a bit of flicking like this. And then start troweling it up. Or you can spray. Don't get too carried away with the water, because if you put too much water over it, what happens is it slightly bubbles, not a lot. It does just bubble just a little bit, so better not to go too crazy. And then I just give it a little brush over like that. Now you know it's going good because as you trowel it, it just leaves behind a real nice flat finish with no tearing. If it starts to tear, it means it's still too wet. Obviously, keep your trowel nice and clean, so if it gets too much gear on it, clean it off so it doesn't cause any dragging or leave any crap behind. Okay, I'll just literally continue along the wall until that is done. Okay, so we are now at the final stage of plastering and finishing off. So I tend to go get one of these little trowels, filling knife, whatever you want to call it. Just go round, scrape off any bits that the brush didn't get. You can use it for getting in the corners and cleaning them up, because sometimes your trowel won't get in the corner. And also, you know the wall is finished, because when you are doing your final trowel, you get that nice crisp sound coming off of it, where it's nice and hard. So you just wet it up a little bit. Any slight defects or any ridges or anything, that's when you can just press them in, press them flat. So yeah, that's how I plaster using Lutece 2000. So literally today I've done this whole room. The only wall I didn't do is just that little bit of a wall as you walk out, purely because the plumber was here and he would have ended up covered in it because he was in and out of that door, so I left it for him. Let's go see what the boys have been up to.